All right, we are back for Heart to Heart Conversation, the podcast, because this is happening, and I just couldn't be more excited that you reached out to me, Dawn, and you're so willing and open to share your heart with the world. And gosh, this topic, I was telling you as we were talking beforehand that it is bold to come out and say women need to be selfish. And so I'd love to, before we even get into how we define selfishness and what that even means, let's talk about kind of, yeah, why this is important. Like, where were you before such that you realize, oh my gosh, I need to be selfish?
Yeah. So before, right? I was always a caretaker as a little girl. I was always taking care. I was always checking with my mom. I remember, like, as a child, everyone would say, "You're going to be such a good therapist." I was with my friends. I used to have therapy sessions. We used to call them therapy sessions. And I was constantly overextending myself. And sometimes specifically, I had this like thing of doing it where people who weren't good to do that with, like, there were certain friends that I'm no longer friends with now, that I would just try and try and try and try and show up and show up and show up and show up and get really drained. Um, I was a constant giver. I was a constant giver of my time. I was a constant giver of my friendship, constant giver of my love. Did that a lot with guys. And I got really sick. I got a lot of stomach issues. I got really, 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 really sick. And I've had times where I've gotten really sick a few times. But this particularly was, I was a live-in nanny, and I was just never having a break. I lived in with them, and I never got just like me time. And I got really sick, and I had to quit my job, and I got so sick, you know what I mean? And in that time of getting so sick, people had to take care of me, and I had to get taken care of. And I realized in that moment, like, never again am I not going to be selfish.
Yeah, that's huge. I think sometimes it does show up in our body first before we realize it in our mind or even are going to take those steps to quote unquote heal ourselves, right? Is like, okay, our body just is going to shut down because we can't take it anymore. And in your case, yeah, it was like, all right, it's your turn to receive. You're going to have to learn the hard way, Dawn.
It was total hard way. It was totally the hard way to learn. And it felt very uncomfortable. I felt very uncomfortable, and I had to learn it a few more times until I got into where I am today.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about those couple times afterwards?
Well, I mean, I still think I'm a constant giver. Even now I'm coaching, and I want my clients to have everything, and I give lots of bonuses and extras and discounts and everything like that. And I'm just a constant giver. But what I've learned, and the few more times, is I repeatedly have gotten sick. I got sick 2 more times. And then this last time I got like really selfish, and I was just like, I just like had to take care of me, and everyone needed to take care of me in order for me to be as prosperous as I am. And that's kind of where I'm going, is like this concept of like giving and taking and receiving, and what I call gifting, and how they're all different. But I had to learn a few, like God had to be like, no, like literally you have to receive, Dawn. Like, you literally have to receive, or you're not gonna be able to live a prosperous life. And I got really selfish within the last few years.
Yeah, so gosh, there's so many moving parts there. There's the giving, there's the gifting, there's the receiving, and there's the selfishness. So let's start with the giving versus gifting, and then we can move on to the receiving and selfishness of kind
Sure.
of defining it.
it's something I've been playing with, which I was like, what is different about my energy now? Because I'm still giving, right? I'm still giving, but it feels really good. It doesn't feel depleting or draining or overextending of myself. It feels really good. I do a lot for like my clients and the people around me. And I've done a lot of stuff where I just randomly am like, free session or free card reading or whatever, and it feels really good, whereas before it felt really draining. And I was like, what am I doing that's different? What is the thing? And I realized that I'm gifting people. When you gift somebody, you create, like, right, you pick out the present or you make the present and you put all this like love into it, and you're like, I personally am really excited to like gift someone something, and I think about it and I'm like, and it feels like, oh, like, great. Like, I'm not giving from a place of lack, but I'm gifting someone because I have a lot and it's their birthday or it's their wedding or whatever occasion it is. And I come from a place of fullness and wholeness. And so I realized what I was doing is I wasn't giving people anything. I was gifting them. I didn't have to. Gifts, you don't have to give. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to gift anyone anything, really. It's an extension. Sometimes in our society we get a little like, you gotta give a gift or whatever, but I feel like I feel like more often than not, like, gifting someone is coming from a place of like, I want to gift someone with something, and the amount you put in or the energy you put into the gift is specific to what you can give someone with. And so I realized, like, I'm not giving anymore. I'm not overextending myself. I'm not just constantly, I think in our society, I was always told as a young girl, like, give, be selfless, be selfless. And I think we're really told that, specifically, I think women, if I'm being honest, I think are really told to be selfless and to give of our time and our energy and our donations and all of the things. And so I realized, like, I'm gifting, like, I leave like a little, I used to do this when I was in college and I want to start doing it again, but I would leave dollar bills on people's window shields.
Oh my God, I love that.
And that was a gift. That wasn't any, I was little gift for them. So I realized that's what I was doing, was I do little gifts here and there and surprises and treats and gifting experiences over.
Oh, so good. I love the distinction, and I think it is really important, yeah, to show that you can fill yourself up first. Almost like giving permission of, like, first of all, like, you need to fill yourself up first, right? Otherwise you'll be in this place of lack and almost like resentment too, because it's like, oh, well, I gave to you, and so shouldn't you be giving to me? Because I feel like that's part of our society and culture. In a way, it's like this unspoken rule.
Yes. And that's why I say, I think it gets like a little interesting, but when I gift someone with something, I try never to think that they'll gift me back with something. If I like give a gift, it's my sister's birthday, right? And they did give me a gift, but I'm coming from a place of like, I wanted to get her, she's pregnant, and I wanted to get her this like spa, like all the stuff on Etsy, like the spa stuff on Etsy specifically for mamas to be or whatever. And so I'm gifting her something because I want to. And I think they gave me a gift because they wanted to. You know what I mean? And it's not this resentment of like, it's not like, it doesn't feel resentful. Whereas like what happens with giving and I believe taking is when you give and you give and you give, you get resentful. You get this like little tinge of like, I'm doing so much, somebody else should be doing it. Or when you start to keep score. You know what I mean? Like, I gave this and this person didn't do this and all of this stuff didn't happen. And that's where I think we get into taking versus receiving. I was so drained that I couldn't receive. I was no longer receiving. I was taking. I was literally taking from time and energy. And that's okay. We had to balance all of that stuff out. But I was taking and I wasn't really receiving. I was like, I literally need help and I have to take someone's help. Whereas if I come from a place of abundance and I come from a place of energy, I'm able to receive more. And I always think I'm going to put my hand behind. I always think of receiving coming through the backside. That's what we do in Reiki, is where you receive is the backside of your back.
Yeah. Thank you for going there. And you brought up Reiki. And so, I mean, clearly you have this, I almost want to say, yeah, like tool belt of things that you've gathered on your journey, which have helped you, I would imagine, become a better receiver, right?
Yes, I'm the ultimate receiver, and it's still an ever learning process. But what I realized with myself is I need to fill my cup up for me. I don't need to wait on anyone else. I wish I had brought them so I could, well, nobody can see it, but I just gifted myself cards, and I was like, I got this speaking gig at Unfollow Summit, and I'm doing this pleasure priestess thing, and I just am doing all these things, and I just finished my second chapter of my thesis, and I was like, I'm gonna gift myself something. I'm doing all of these things, and I deserve a gift, so I just got a new deck.
Yeah.
And I realized I don't have to wait to gift, like, people to gift me with stuff, that I can gift myself. And I think that's made me the ultimate receiver. And it's made me really conscious of receiving. I just got a really nice compliment from someone where she, you know, she reposted something I posted, and I was like, oh, thanks for reposting. And I didn't really think anything of it. She's like, your stuff is awesome. And I was like, oh. And I was like, okay. and and at first I didn't. I have this thing, and I can always feel in my body when someone gives you a compliment and you kind of don't take it in, right? You kind of are like, oh, thanks, whatever. And it doesn't really go into your body. And I realized I had done that. And I was like, no, I'm going to receive this, because that's going to fill me up and keep me, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna keep me posting, because it's something I'm like, oh, people are listening to me. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to an empty void. I don't know. And so I literally had it come into the backside of me and like really hear what she was saying. And now I feel really full, and I'm like, oh, like that gives me energy to keep doing what I'm doing.
Ooh, yeah. And I think, because I was going to say, as a giver, or should I say gifter, now that we have that terminology, it feels so good when the receiver says, like, oh my gosh, this made my day, or they share how it impacts them, because then it's like, oh, I kind of want to give to them again, or give to them something else, right? Because it's just like this loop of, I guess you could say, like, positive energy and good vibes.
Yeah, I always think of it, and it was that. And when I really did receive it, I was like, thank you so much. Like, this means so much to me. And I bet you she felt that, because I had felt it in my body. Sorry, I keep saying she. I honestly don't know if it was the she or they or he. But what I think of gifting and receiving, and I'm doing it with my fingers, but is making an affinity sign. When you gift and you receive, it's this constant flow of energy. It's this flow of natural gifting and receiving and gifting and receive it. Like you said, you want to gift someone more because they received well. And then that person who received well, and this has happened like so many times, wants to gift you with stuff, and just like this constant. And so then you're coming from a higher vibration. Both of you are coming from this fullness. You're not coming from lack. Both feel very, very full from the experience. Or I feel like when we're giving, we often are taking, and we're not coming that energy. Do you see it? It's like the giver expects you to give back to them, and the taker is like, I can't give back to you, and wants to just take of the gift. And so there's no flow of the energy. But when you're gifting and you're receiving, it's a constant energy flow.
Yeah, and I think a big part of this too that I've just heard throughout when we're talking is just letting go of expectations, because expectations, man, it leads to upsets and resentment and sadness, and it's easier said than done, because I'm like, yeah, just let it go, but it takes work, intentional, conscious effort to be able to let go of any expectations and just gift or receive, or whatever it looks like.
Yeah, and I think what I do here is it's something I didn't know I was going to bring this up. Okay, so on my computer, I went away. I went away from my computer. I was doing my business stuff, and I've been doing a lot of manifesting, and what I call femifesting, in the divinely feminine way.
Did you come up with that concept?
Okay, I thought I did, but I didn't. I looked it up. There's a woman who's been talking about it for a long time. She does it a little bit different than I do. I forget her name. It's like Evelyn Rose or something. And so I want to give her credit. because I was like, did I really make this up, or is this actually like a thing? You know, nothing is new. But the way I do it is different than the way she does it, but there's some similarities and crossovers that we have. So I always want to comment on the things that are similar and that she's already created. Whereas I talk about manifesting as celebrating, celebrating when you manifest and you go into the future. That's what happens with manifesting, is you live it out like it's done. And so I say celebrate that. You've already done it. You created that past. You celebrate it. And then you ask for the next best step. What do I take that's on the next best step to that path to get that future? Because you've already created the path. You've already gotten the pathway. It's already happened. And so what do you need to do next in order to be on that path and in that lane? But the first thing is to celebrate it, that it happened. Too much we wait for the future to happen, and I think it drains us, and we need to celebrate it in that moment. Like, you did the big part, you created the reality, you did the big thing, and then you go forward. But what happens with my clients is I work with them in creating businesses that are prosperous, and I give them this oath of manifestation. And what happened is I went away from my computer and I came back and it was on my computer. I have no idea how it showed up. And I only recently looked it up. It's from a guy named Alex something, or you can look it up, Oath of Manifestation. You can look it up. Anyone can get access to it. It's not like, but I just was like, what just happened? I was like, I felt like creepy vibes, not like creepy, like good vibes. It was obviously like guys or something, but it was like this like intense vibes where I was like what just happened? And so what it says in that oath is to expect the unexpected, to be open to the unexpected. And I think that's what is here is I kind of do tell my clients, like, expect like bonuses and gifts, but they don't know what that is. You know what I mean? Like there's like a gift, and you know, there's like, they don't know what kind of stuff they're getting. And there's something about surprise, like expect unexpected surprises and expect the things that you want to come in unexpected ways. I think we get really rigid. I think it happens with manifesting. Is like, it has to be this way. Instead of, I'm like, this is the goal. I don't really care how I get there, but this is the goal. And oftentimes I get there in very unique ways, in just like crazy, beyond my dream ways.
Yeah, I even think of past examples where I did have a big goal, and of course I had my idea of like, it's going to go this way, and it ended up, when I let go, it ended up being so much better than I could have ever even planned. So that's beautiful. And what you're bringing up too, it reminds me of, I don't know if have you heard of kind of the difference between paranoia and pronoia? Oh, okay. So paranoia obviously is like, oh, like anything bad could happen like any second, right? And living in fear. Whereas pronoia is living as if like, oh, like blessings are coming your way type thing, where it's like, oh my gosh, like so much good is happening, and just, yeah, like, oh, how can it get any better than this? And what's the next thing? You know, just kind of like that childlike wonder of yeah, expecting, what did you say? Expecting the best?
The unexpected.
Yes. Yeah. So you don't have to let go of expectations entirely. You can still expect, but expect good things.
Yeah. And expect that it's going to be, I always used to say like, for something like this, or greater, wiser, and brighter. You know, whatever, you know, people say, so it is. And I said, you know, something like this, or greater, wiser, and brighter. I used to say that all the time. Because there's something, I believe, that's bigger than us, that has an idea that my idea is there, but I always think we can amplify whatever we have. It's like bigger. So that's what I believe.
I'm curious, because you're talking about your clients, and of course you've been in this work of supporting other people. Women majority?
You know, it was a little even split, and lately it's been women more.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what patterns, or if you've noticed them kind of in similar spots that you were at the beginning of your journey, and maybe unable to receive or unwilling. And so how do you coach them through that? Where do you start? What are the baby steps?
Well, I think what I've learned, and I've learned this through training to be a therapist, is it's all about modeling, and always about making clear. Sometimes when this actually happens quite often, I gift someone with something like a bonus or extra time or an actual like gift. And usually this happens if I give extra time, they're like, okay, I'll give you something. And I'm like, no, you're going to receive. Like, I literally gifted you with this extra time, and I don't need you to get back to me. And I think that's what you do with example. It's like, take it in. This is yours. We don't need to go back and forth. And then sometimes I do, like, sometimes, one of my clients is really phenomenal. And I think it's gonna be the next Esther Perel. And
ooh, keep your eyes out.
She's channeling Mary Magdalene, and we've been working on that together. And she did gift me with an experience, and I think it was a little bit of give and take, where I was helping her, like telling her how I felt and what the experience was like for me. So it gave her feedback, because this is a new thing that she's doing. And she was phenomenal. It was freaking great. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Everything I thought and more. So I think it's about having boundaries and saying, this is naming what it is. I was like, this is a gift I'm giving you, and naming, like, this is like, you're gifting me with something and I'm taking it in and I'm gifting you back with this thing, and like, that infinity sign again. I think it's just being very clear with my clients, using those words, like, this is what we're doing. So
yeah.
that
Clear communication makes a huge difference. Yeah, and I didn't want to cut you off there. What were you going to say? So that
I don't remember, but I don't think it's important.
Okay. It's funny how, we of course, had the title, Why Women Need to Be More Selfish, but of course we're focusing so much on the giving and receiving, because that's just like a foundation of, it's all connected, right? And so, I mean, selfish, self-care, like, what do you have to say about that?
Sure. So I actually did a whole thing on this on selfish, but I agree. I think we all need to be a lot more selfish. I was in I've been raised in the spiritual community, and what it says, and I feel like every single guru might come into this and beat me over the head or something. But there's one thing that stuck in my mind growing up that my mom said, and I didn't get it, but it got in, where she went to volunteer with Mother Teresa, and Mother Teresa was like, why are you all here? And they said, to give to the poor, or to help the world, or constant, like, to create more love and peace, to give. I think they were building houses, so to create for poor communities, kind of stuff. And Mother Teresa was like, what do you give yourself, or something like that? What do you give yourself, and how do you take care of yourself? And no one could answer the question. And she's like, first you give to yourself, then you give to your family, then you give back to your community, then you give back to your like city, and then just from there. She's like, if you're trying to help the world, you first need to give to yourself. Like, she didn't say this, but what I always think of about it is like putting your oxygen mask on before everyone else, so you're full. And so I always am, and I create selfish days, and I call it self-love days, because I think people get really caught up in the world, but I want people to feel like they're just having a day where it's all about them, where that's okay. Because what happens with that languaging is you get way more full. You're like, yeah, I'm being selfish. Yeah, I used to have these things called dawn days, and I was like, I used to take myself out on dates when I was in college, and I was like, if I can't date myself, nobody's gonna date me. A little eat, pray, love, and before it happened, and on Thursdays I would take myself out on a dawn date. My friends would try to they thought it was funny, and they would always try to disrupt my day. Specifically, this one roommate I had, and she's like, "Are you having your dawn day?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so I would go to all the different restaurants that I wouldn't normally go for, and that I would have liked to have gone with on a date or whatever. But I would always let myself like have an extra glass of wine, or eat dessert before dinner, or like all this like stuff. And so I was allowing myself to be selfish. I didn't know that that was a word, but I was allowing myself to be selfish for a day, and I was really full, and I could really go back into from a fullness. I always say I'm having a dawn day. Really, I'm sad, but I'm excited. My man and me were supposed to have a date on Saturday, but he's working now. And I'm like, okay, well, I need a dawn day anyways. So.
Oh my gosh, and it's so perfect, dawn day. I feel like too, in college, I mean, you were way ahead of your time. Like, there's just so many college kids who I'll even admit, yeah, like I wanted love and attention, and sure, I'll take any guy that'll, at that time in my life. And I mean, okay, that's a little extreme. I wouldn't I have standards, but for you to be able to just dedicate that time, that's amazing.
Well, I read, I think it was just that it was toward the ends of college, so let's like not say it, but I read Gabrielle Bernstein, Add More Ing to Your Life or whatever. And it's there's lots of things that put me on the spiritual path, but this was one of the things where it wasn't exactly a spiritual path. It was more like, yeah, like add more fun and abundance and like prosperity and joy into your life. Like add more ing. I would always say that. I'm like, what's going to add more ing to my life? And
like ing?
ing, yeah. She has a book on it. I don't remember all the specifics, but it's essentially like extra, like add more extra to your life. And so that's what I started to do. Is I was like, I'll add more ing to my life.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I think especially as women, we're designed to just be, right? And in this world, I think it is easy to get caught up in I need to hustle, I need to grind, I need to do, and just perform and get the results and take the action. And while that's great, and I think it can be empowering for some women, it's also against our nature. And I mean, the mantra I've been saying recently is the more I rest, the more I receive. Because yeah, when I am just in the flow, and maybe it's dancing, maybe it's going on a walk, maybe it's having a conversation like this, because I mean, this could be seen as work, but this is fun. I feel so in the flow in a heart-to-heart conversation. That like raises, my energy, my vibration, and I'm able to receive after that, right? I'm just like, I'm filling myself up.
And the thing is specifically as women or like feminine beings, their job in life is to receive. We are the receivers. That's actually what we're meant to do. And we forever are taught to be selfless. And I think we need to be the ultimate receivers. When a woman receives, it's so pleasurable for a man. When I fully am in my body and I receive the gifts that my fiance is giving, it lights him up. I can see him get giddy, and he wants to like gift me more. You know what I mean? Like you said, when I like am like, ooh, I'm very excited about something, and then he's like, oh, okay. Like I remember I'm obsessed with Harry Potter. I wish we could do Harry Potter all over again. And I went to he got us tickets just cause to go to Universal Studios and see Harry Potter. And I like cried, and I was like freaking out for like days. And he was like, I knew you were gonna like this, but I didn't know you were gonna like it this much. And like when we almost went in there, like I was like I was like a little kid, and I had to like hold my breath, and I was like, okay, let's go. And he was like, let's do all the things. Let's go to the magic wand place. Let's get oh man, I can't remember the beer. What is it called?
I have no idea.
Oh no. It's so famous right now. I'm having a brain fart. Something. Someone will know that, and they'll be like, I can't believe you're a Harry Potter fan and you forgot that. But yeah.
They'll be listening, and they'll like speak it out and fill it in for us. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Thanks. I can't believe I can't remember it right now. Anyways, so it was just like all the things. It was all the things. We got like a donut. I think the last time I ate a donut was there. It was a huge giant donut at it was like the Simpsons. You get like these like giant like cake donuts. Anyways, very excited. But I received that really well, right? And so it's really excited because the more I receive, the more he was able to gift. And I was able to fill myself up, and he's able to fill himself up, because when it feels like a gift and someone's receiving it really well, you don't feel drained. all the times that I was giving and people didn't realize that I was giving to them, of my time or energy or friendship or love or anything like that. And they didn't receive that because they didn't even know I was doing that. They didn't receive it. It just felt draining. It felt exhausting.
Oh my gosh, as you're talking, I'm realizing how in my past, and I'm still working on it, but how many barriers I have to receiving. And I think it comes down to, in the end, love. I mean, that's really what it is, whether it's a trip to, I don't know, Universal Studios, or if it's a kiss on the cheek, like receiving love. I just had so many barriers, and it was hard to let other people contribute to me. I think there was this aspect of like, oh, even just reaching out for help too. There's this aspect of, oh, I don't want to be a burden. Like, who am I? But I realize how, oh my gosh, on the other end, when people ask me for help, I love that. I love being able to give of my talents. And I'm like, I'm honored that they reached out to me and thought of me. And so I just need to remember that and carry that forward.
Yes. And there would be honors. I bet you there's lots of people who would love to help you. And I love when people come. I'm constantly on DM in people's boxes, just like, hey, do you want a card or something? I think people are always trying to think that I'm trying to sell them. And I'm honestly not. Like, I just am like curious about people. I love people. I'm very curious about them.
Yeah. And that's so good. It's a strength, I think, and it's no wonder that you're out there coaching and impacting people, helping them live their best lives, because you know what it is to do that for yourself and to be able to give that. I think that's why we're here on this earth, as human beings, is, uplifting each other. And man, like the world as it is right now, I'm like, we could really learn a lot from this. And I mean, I could go on this whole rant about if women were more selfish, then we wouldn't be where we are now. But
it comes from a place of pleasure. Like, I'm being a little coachy here, but what can you gift yourself with today? That's what I would ask. What can you gift yourself with today? Because what I've learned in all of my work is it's really about filling your self cup up. If you can't gift yourself with anything, it was the same thing with the Dawn days. If I can't go on a date with myself, how am I going to go on a date with anyone else? If you can't gift yourself, if you can't receive from your own self of time, energy, money, playing hooky, whatever it is, if you can't personally receive that from yourself, how are you ever going to have be able to receive from someone else?
Right. And there it goes into worthiness, like how much do you believe fully that you are worthy and you deserve this love, this fill in the blank.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know you're worthy. You exist, so you are worthy. And I think do it when, a lot of people were talking about selfish and self-love and all this. Like, everyone was like, you have to love yourself. You have to love yourself before you have a partner or find someone that's your soulmate. And I can tell you, I found my soulmate in the worst of times, when I felt the worst about myself. And I'm just going to burst all of those bubbles where even if you think you're so unworthy, still buy yourself a gift. Even if it's the first step. And I found the love of my life when I did not love myself whatsoever. And now I am the biggest lover of myself. And I think he mirrored for me how much I deserved love.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I love that you took it there, because that's been on my heart. Is I've always kind of questioned, well, do you have to fully love yourself and just have self-love, have that not mastered, but have it down before you attract that partner and that soulmate? And I'm actually going to be having a future heart-to-heart conversation centered around this with some friends, because there was this post that said, no, actually, you don't have to fully love yourself. And sometimes it is that partner that is literally there to help teach you that. Yeah.
And mine was literally there. And that's something I've also talked about with my clients and in my group is, self-love is a journey. It's not a destination. It's a lifetime journey, and it's going to get better and better and better. And so you always take step number one, which is admitting to yourself that you don't love yourself. And that's okay. That's step number one, is if you can admit that, just like if you could admit that you're an alcoholic or something else, if you can admit that, then it's able. Like, I couldn't admit it to myself because I was in the spiritual community and everyone's like, self-love and you got to love yourself and all this like stuff. And I was like, I really don't love myself. I've been doing all this work and I still don't love myself. And I think the first step to me loving myself was me admitting to myself that I actually wasn't fully in love with myself.
Yeah. And then by acknowledging it, you can actually delve into it and see, okay, from here, what are the possibilities? What do I create?
And what am I showing? Everything is about, to me, is like intentions and presence. I do a lot of work on pleasure, but my intention last is like, what am I doing to love myself and what feels like love to myself? And you know, I'm remembering at that time when I started doing that work is yoga. At that time I would go to yoga, and I didn't have a lot of spare time, but I would always go to yoga. I think it was like at Thursdays. And then I would go, I forget the shop, like it's a delicatessen place. And I would always buy myself something like that. And I was like, this is me loving myself. This is only because I love myself. There's no other reason for me to do it. And I think that was the first step. And I think that's intention of like, what are you doing? What are you doing to gift yourself with something? How are you receiving? Is just intention on it. And just not having attachment to it. If it's like, I'm not really receiving this, then it's okay, but you're noticing it. And that's the most important thing. I used to teach meditation, and it's all about noticing. If you have a billion thoughts, it's just about noticing I have a billion thoughts and letting yourself, I used to say 1 minute, 5 minutes, and you go to 10 minutes and 15 minutes and 20 minutes. And 20 minutes is really the goal of meditation. Nothing, you don't have to go further than that. You can, but you don't have to.
Yeah, and not making those thoughts wrong, because heck, I think some people have it in their mind that, I mean, I know I did when I first learned about meditation, that, oh, you're sitting there and you're just in utter like peace and bliss and there's no thoughts in your mind and everything is clear, when really, how often does that happen?
Well, that's the whole, I mean, it would be like if I ran a marathon and I got in first place, like that would never happen. You know what I mean? Like that would never happen. And so of course you're not going to be in absolute bliss. You do meditation to get to that place of bliss. And it's lessons and lessons and lessons, but you're not going to win the race if you've never ran before.
Whoa, that is a really good example, huh? I mean, and I was tempted even to jump in there and be like, never say never. You don't know. Maybe if you practice enough and run.
But if you don't practice or anything, you don't do anything the first time, I mean, maybe, sure. And if you can close your eyes and go into ultimate bliss, I mean, that's awesome. But I think that is an exception to the rule and not the rule.
Yeah, I'm like, if that is you and you are listening to this, please reach out because I want to meet you. But going back to what you were saying earlier about intention and presence and all of that, it made me think about how you said, yeah, I was in the spiritual community, I was doing the work, and I still didn't love myself. Like, I think it's important to think about maybe intentions even behind doing the work, because I think some people are maybe in, and I say quote unquote the work of self-development or, courses, whatever it may be, people are in it with the intention of like, oh, I need to fix myself because I'm broken. And I don't want to say that's wrong, but I think that's something to look at, if like, oh, you're attending this because you think you're broken and you're here to fix yourself. Wait a minute.
Yeah, and this is coming from the person who ultimately thought I was the most broken, and I actually am going to see this doctor and do network spinal analysis, which is, healing work on the spine. And he's like, you're not broken, you're whole. There was 2 people in my life who always like, you're whole, you're not broken, there's nothing you need to fix. He was one person, and so was Jaya from the Erotic Blueprint, Jaya Ma. And she would go on stage and she said, nothing is wrong. You are not broken. You are whole. Nothing is wrong. These are 2 people later on in my life. I don't even know when it was, 27, 28. I've been doing spiritual. I mean, I was kind of always doing spiritual work, but when I was 20, I started to go on my own path. And no one had told me that. No one had in a spiritual, it was all, maybe no one said you had to fix yourself, but there was this essence of like, there's something wrong with you. Like you have to be on the spiritual back to like, get on the right track or whatever it was. It was very like harsh, and no one had ever just let me say like, you're not broken, like you're not broken at all. And these two people did, and I really started to embody that. And I'm going to be like this big commercial right now, but I'm going to tell you that pleasure has been the modality that has helped me realize that I'm not broken. If I am in pleasure, or if I do things that are pleasure for me, I just mean that I say pleasure is the embodied feeling of joy. If things feel so enjoyable to me, no matter what I'm doing, and I don't feel broken. And a lot of things that I was doing was not lighting my joy.
Yes, 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 yes. And I say too, I've been saying this actually a lot this past week, of pleasure is our divine birthright, and it took me a while to even get to that point, because for so long, I think I was denying myself pleasure. It was like, who knows what it was around, worthiness or lack of self-love. I don't know, but I just wasn't allowing myself to go there. It felt wrong or shameful in some ways.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the work I do. I mean, we all come from shame. So I'm the ultimate sexual shame healer. And we all come from this, I think it has a lot to do. It has to do with our culture. It has to do with our parents. And it also has to do with, I believe, karma and all of the things that are interconnected. I mean, we talk about Adam and Eve's story, the Eve takes, the forbidden fruit, and everyone's ashamed to be naked. There's this idea that we have in our brain that pleasure, I feel like we're getting into religion, but my ultimate thing is, she was very curious, and she was very much in her pleasure, and she's like, this apple looks really good. You know what I mean? Like, and she was shamed for that, right? And sometimes I think as children, we're shamed for just going with what feels really good to us. And we're often shamed and told that's wrong or bad or naughty or something like that. One of my clients had this, she was like, I was really into penises when I was 6. And I was like, 6 and 7 years old is when you get a hit of being really into the body. And we shame the kids for checking each other out when they're just like very curious. They don't know what that is. Infants masturbate in utero when they masturbate. And so we are innately pleasurable and like pleasure, and pleasure is where our creativity is. But we're so shamed for that part of ourselves, and we so disconnect from that part of ourselves. And I agree with you 100%. Pleasure is our birthright. I believe it is. There are many ways to awaken, or there's many ways to be on the spiritual path, but if you want to have a pleasurable experience, pleasure is the way to go.
Yeah, what a concept. Yeah. Start with pleasure. And I think it's funny how just like where this conversation has taken us. And I think it's so good that it's gone here, though, because obviously it's great that, we talk about giving, receiving, being selfish, but at the root of it, it does. I think the barriers are shame, guilt, and fear. And then on the flip side of that is, experiencing pleasure and joy and allowing your heart to open to that feeling of just pure bliss.
Yeah, and I was the biggest resistance, Jaya. I coached with Jaya, with me and my partner, for a year, and I was the biggest resistance. We would do pleasure first, and I do it with my clients. And it's a meditation, but it's very pleasurable meditation, or we do something like dance or do some, I intuit whatever it is, but we lead with pleasure. I was so resistant to that because I was like, let's get to you're my coach, like we only have an hour and a half here, like let's get to the good stuff. And she's like, this is it, we're doing it right now. And I was so resistant to it. And now I'm the ultimate, like, pleasure first, everyone pleasure first, and everything like that. And if I could offer you something, is to start with just having a little bit of pleasure. Mine is always in my morning cup of coffee. I make sure that I get to experience my morning cup of coffee, get to taste the aromas, I get to sit with it. I make sure I always have time to do that. I know we don't all, but even if it's just like 2 minutes where you're like, this is my morning cup of coffee and it gives me so much pleasure, and maybe it's your tea or something else, I think it will increase and heighten you know, when I think of pleasure, literally my body starts to tinkle and I start to like get warm and stuff. It's like pleasure is like this juicy feeling. And live my life by pleasure first.
Yeah, and I hear in that just like allowing all five senses to come in and just fully being present and in the experience. Yeah, and I think about even just society and in our go 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 just mentality that we don't always carve out that time to allow ourselves to have pleasure in those little things, like a cup of coffee, right? Like maybe we're just, I know I've done this. Well, I'm not a coffee person, but you know, with my morning tea or breakfast or whatever, it's like, oh, scrolling through the phone, you know, instead of just being there and with it.
Yeah, and it's just also, I mean, maybe, but if see, I'm like the ultimate rebellion. If it gives you pleasure to be on your phone and have your morning cup of coffee, if you can notice the pleasure in that, then I'm all for you doing that. I'm all for, like, it's kind of fun, you know. I make sure it's pleasurable for me. I'm not gonna, like, on my phone when I woke up this morning, I had a lot of business stuff going on. Like, that's not pleasurable for me. But seeing what someone's cool post, I'm like, yeah. And then I'm drinking my coffee and I'm like, you know, a lot of, you know, I'm into sacred witches, but a lot of sacred witch stuff is like, yeah, you know, they said stir counterclockwise if you're getting rid of negative energy, and stir clockwise if you want to increase positivity or something like that. And I'm like, if I had never looked at my phone, I never would have known that. You know what I mean? So I'm actually all about you being on your phone and drinking your cup of coffee, as long as you notice that's pleasurable. If it's making you have a headache, then I'm not about that. Then don't do that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Wow, thanks for adding that in there. Yeah, because there was this element of me like, well, it's wrong to be on your phone. You shouldn't be on your phone. You need to be present with just the cup of coffee.
No, see, this is where I abolish all spiritual teachings. And we are meant to enjoy our lives as they are. Everyone has all these rules that they give us, and really the rules are up to you. There's good to have rules and boundaries. And one of the things is like, I don't want to go into like a Facebook hole. Like, I don't look at Facebook because Facebook is so negative. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go into a Facebook hole and get really angry and upset and sad. But Instagram, I love seeing the pictures. I love the comments. They light me up. You know what I mean? And that's okay. But it's just about knowing. But if Facebook, if you go on Facebook and you're like, actually, I love it. Like, it's just about noticing in you. I think our lives are set up to give us pleasure, and I don't want to put rules on people.
Amen. Yeah, like, mic drop for real. That's such a good place to wrap up. I also want to make sure though, to give space at the end here if there maybe wasn't something that we what am I trying to say? I want to give space at the end here for you to add anything maybe that you want to share and make sure to have on this heart-to-heart conversation.
No, I feel good. Like, I just think those things, like bringing attention to them, I really, really want you, the things I want you to do is notice pleasure. Is this pleasurable? How pleasurable is this? And what would increase the pleasure? And also gift yourself, celebrate yourself right now in this moment. Those are my homework for you. I really want you to be selfish and give yourself some space.
Oh, this is so good. This is the first time we've had someone on who's giving homework. That's good. I'll try and add that, capture it and add it to the show notes too, so people have it. With that, where can people find you?
So I'm all over the place, but I'm most active on Instagram. So you can follow me at Joyfull Body, and the full part is with 2 L's. And then if you look up Joyfull Body anywhere on Facebook, or I have a Facebook group too, you will find me.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, yes, and that will also be in the show notes. Thank you again for joining me, and thank you for everyone that's tuning in. I hope that you got something out of this, and heck, if you do, I mean, post it on Instagram and tag us, because we would love to see your takeaways and what you got out of it, and maybe how you're experiencing pleasure in your life.
Yes, please flag all the pleasure. I want to know. Light up the world.
So good.